I'm visiting my mother tomorrow.
Welcome back. Good. Just want to say, by the way, great film. I loved it. I'm a big fan of both Hereditary and Midsommar, so it was good seeing your styles back on the big screen. And this one it seems like a personal movie, so that was really interesting to see. And I just want to say I'm a big fan of the film.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to see it again tonight. So a second viewing sometimes change a little bit of the perspective that we have. But since we're in Montreal, I just wanted to discuss about your decision to film in Montreal, because I'm not from Montreal personally, but I'm from the area. And when I come in Montreal, there's a certain level of chaos and filth and noise that you see in Montreal. And I feel like there was a good choice to pick Montreal for your film, because there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of that in the movie. So I'm just curious, what were your decision-making process to film in Montreal?
Well, I mean, it begins with just incentives, right? Like that it's cheaper to make a film here than it would be almost anywhere in the States. And when we came to visit it, it just made sense. Like everything we needed was here. We needed water, we needed suburbs, we needed an urban area. So it all just kind of worked. And then you guys have really great stages here with Mel's and all those guys. You know, it just everything fit. And we had a movie that was much bigger than that. A movie that was bigger than the budget we had, and so we needed to squeeze the money as far as we could, and we could do that here. But it was a great place to shoot, and yeah, amazing crews.
Was it your first time in Montreal when you came out to shoot?
It was my first time in Montreal.
Yeah.
But Pavel Pogorzelski, the cinematographer, you know, this is his hometown, so he grew up here. So.
Good, perfect.
Yeah.
So in terms of the animation sequence that you have in the film, it's one of my favorite moments in the film. There's a lot of stressful beats, but this moment it's a moment that you could just relax and enjoy all the scenery that there is. So I'm just curious, at what point in the process you decided to contact Cristobal and Joachim from The Wolf House, those directors? Like, is there a point in the process that you were like, I need those guys absolutely for this sequence?
At first, it wasn't clear that it was going to be animated. I thought it was just going to be like, you know, stagecraft, because he enters a play, and then I realized I wanted to go a little bit further with just playing with the form there, and you know, and that I was interested in having animated elements kind of interact with whatever we were going to do in that sequence. And we started looking at animation houses, and there was something just kind of impersonal about not necessarily the work that they were doing, but just like the slate, where it's like, well, they did this and this and this, and they're all different styles, and it felt I just couldn't get excited about any of them, even though a lot of them were, you know, clearly populated by, you know, like really brilliant artists. But then I remembered that I had seen this film La Casa Lobo by Cristobal Leon and Joaquin Cosina. Yeah, and it's a masterpiece, and I remember being so blown away by it, and I thought, well, it'll be harder to get people like that onto the movie, because they are, you know, they're artists who do their own work. But that I'd rather work with people like that if I can, so that it's not just an assignment, but that it should be a labor of love.
It was a collaboration with them, like, really, yeah.
Yeah.
And how long did it take to shoot that sequence? Was it like the most challenging sequence in the film to film, or?
Well, it's not about filming. You know, it's more than that. It's about building, and that's about animating. So the filming is easy. It's the
process afterwards that took,
and the process before.
Yeah.
And so that, but I was lucky in that they were enthusiastic about doing the film, and it was, and in the end, I had them design the look of the
I mean, like what the stage or everything.
yeah,
Oh,
like what's on the stage, what's on the stage,
Yeah.
and then like it's a very artificial, flat environment, especially when he enters the play, and so those were painted by them, or at least the concepts were painted by them, and then we had crew people here in Montreal, replicate them on the stage, and then after that, it was about kind of playing around with, what is the look of this world, in what direction do we go, how naive do we want this to be, because the idea was that it should be a naive aesthetic, because you are kind of entering Beau's mind, and Beau is kind of like simple, and then and really it was about I came to them with a storyboard, and with storyboards and with a shot list, so it was dictated in that sense, but I tried to give them a lot of freedom as far as
they're so creative, so they were able to put their input into the movie. And you have a way, like in both in Hereditary and Midsommar, you the way you put art as a mean of narrative, like you push forward. The same thing in the Midsommar, you have like those Arga murals that you use and all those things, those horror elements. I love how you use all those kind of things, and that worked really well in Beau. So I was also wondering in terms of, because I'm writing for Horreur Québec, which is an outlet in Quebec here, and I'm a big horror fan. So I was wondering like the switch you made between Hereditary and Midsommar in terms of horror elements. So in Hereditary and Midsommar, I see like a lot of you have surrealistic elements, but mainly they are horror films. And in that one, I see it more as a surrealistic film incorporating horror elements. I'm just curious, what's your approach with horror in this movie?
Well, I don't think in that way. I mean,
your brain just like immediately.
it almost. I mean, it might be in my mind at the very beginning, like, oh, I guess I'm going to do a horror movie, and then maybe and then it comes back into my mind when I'm in post, when I'm trying to think about, okay, so how are we going to sell this? How are we going to market it? But I just try to tell the story. And I think what drives me nuts about a lot of genre films is that it feels like they're so beholden to the genre, you know what I mean? Yeah. And people's expectations there. Which is not to say that those aren't on my mind. In some ways, I feel like I was almost too beholden to those. Maybe in I'm not going to say which, because then it's going to be speculated about. But I so it's not to say like I don't think that way, but it is to say that whenever I do think that way, I kind of regret it, and I think it's not to the film's benefit. And the more I make films, the more I realize like I want to get away from that way of thinking.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean it's funny because I am a genre filmmaker and I love genre, so it's not me dismissing genre or dismissing horror films. I love horror films. It's just that at no point was I thinking, okay, what are the horror elements? It's really just like
it's coming naturally as you're writing it.
Yeah, and if anything, I think if anything, I just clearly have a lot of that in my system. That I just am, like maybe I do have like my mind goes to like kind of.
Well, it's in your DNA as like a filmmaker. Someone probably grew up watching a lot of horror movies or something. When you're writing, it immediately goes into it. So I guess I just like one last question I would have. I was watching your short film Beau. You made it in 2011, and it's really inspiring seeing, like, as a young filmmaker, seeing people. I think you were 25 when you made that film, or something like that.
I would have been 22.
Yeah, so it's cool seeing how it reflects into that movie and certain shots.
Actually, no, I was 25. You were right.
Yeah.
It was 2011.
Yeah.
So I would have been like 24.
Yeah, so it's a pretty young age to do a short film, but it's actually the age where people are like driven to do short films. So I'm just curious, like, what advice would you give to young filmmakers, and how much those short films is helping you, you know, shaping your career moving forward? Yeah. Well, I guess an advice would be my first question. That was a lot of questions in one. Yeah. Just make sure it's recording. Yeah, all right, good.
I would say my advice would be to stick to one's convictions when they're making anything. I mean, it's obvious to say, yeah, just make movies and like keep practicing. But I would say when you're doing that obvious thing that you obviously have to do if you want to make films, then I think especially early on, like the worst thing you can do is try to appease some imaginary audience. I think you have to like do your best to know yourself and try to be.
I think the best thing you said is like not keeping those. People always say like you need to work, you need to shoot, but your advice was something I was like, yeah, I wanted something different than you just need to shoot. But yeah, there's also practice that goes behind it. But it was cool seeing all the short films you made, and that led up to your big, you know, breakout movie with Hereditary, and your progress is really cool to watch.
Well, thank you, and I never want to see those shorts again. Like I never want to talk about them again. I never want to have anybody else see them again. But they were useful in that they were all experiments in me trying to see what worked for me, and the more shit that I threw at the wall, the more that stuff stuck. Like, and then other things didn't. It bounced off and they didn't work. But now I know that doesn't work. But oh look, this is interesting. I'll keep going in that direction. It's all experimentation, and I feel like on this film I tried to keep that going. Just that philosophy of like.
It feels like it all led up to this, and it was a ballsy movie, and you pulled it off.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harry.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. That was my time.
Yeah.
No other question? You're sure? No. All right, thanks.
Thanks very much.
So that was the one which.
Harry the man is here.
Hello, good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.